The perspective and the practices that I share with you are from my adopted tradition of spiritual practice, Śaiva Tantra, through the lens of my practice, lineage, and experience with clients. The pantheon and the practice of Śaiva Tantra is diverse, complex, technical, and esoteric. There are multiple lineages, innumerable forms and expressions of the sacred, and just as many practices to know the sacred and yourself as sacred. And yet, there is an underlying simplicity and essential truth. That is what I try to speak to and work from. So, to give you context and a basic understanding of what shapes this work, today I want to share an overview of the cosmology and the practice of Śaiva Tantra, as well as my training and experience with it from my audiobook. This again, untangle the root of what distracts and derails you from your life's work. Enjoy, and I'd love to hear what lands for you. The cosmology of Tantra. The universe is a living, breathing, energetic reality. Tantra is an experiential spiritual practice of personal transformation and liberation that understands and engages with the entire universe as a living, breathing, energetic reality. Nothing is outside of the sacred. Through the lens of Tantra, nothing is outside of the sacred. Rather, everything is the sacred. Everything, you, me, the trees, the planets, space and time itself, is a combination of consciousness, the great sacred container that witnesses and holds the universe together, and power, the sacred force of creation. Both that consciousness, Shiva, and that creative power, Shakti, are sacred, not conceptually sacred, but as a living, breathing, energetic reality. At the source of all, and ever present, they are merged, a unified, indivisible whole without space, time, or form. Everywhere else, in everything we perceive and in everything we cannot, they are in an internal dance, birthing and dissolving stars, planets, epochs, everything. The entire universe is sound. The source of the universe is silence, and every form in the universe is sound. At source, the universal field of potentiality from which everything arises and everything returns, where consciousness and creative power are indivisible, is silence. Arising and emanating out from it in all directions is sound, or more accurately, speech, because Tantra understands vibration as how the universe, the sacred, speaks. Initially, and at its most subtle and undivided, this sound is a pulse, spanda, the undulating hum of contraction and expansion that is the underlying rhythm of creation. This pulse then expands and differentiates into a spectrum of energy matter that expresses as every possible form in the universe, from the subtlest to the densest, and as the forces that create, sustain, and destroy those forms. Tantra understands this entire spectrum of energy matter as an expression of sacred speech, because vibration is how the universe speaks. And it understands, works with, and relates to the subtlety or density of energetic vibration across this spectrum as 9 layers of consciousness. From pure consciousness, where Shiva, consciousness, and Shakti, creative power, are a unified, indivisible whole without space, time, or form, to physical matter, where the dance of Shiva and Shakti as the source and substance of all matter is hidden. Its expression as energy matter is fractal. How the sacred expresses and comes into form across the energy matter spectrum is fractal in nature. Everything exists at multiple levels, through expression as analogous forms at different densities of energy, and therefore at different levels of consciousness. You can think of it simply and a bit reductively, but helpfully, as everything in the physical universe having multiple energetic equivalents, each at different densities, like reverberating nesting dolls or energetic echoes. This is true of you too. You are not one solid physical being. You are vibrating energy, and you exist at multiple layers of density and consciousness across the energy matter spectrum as 5 energy fields called koshas. Every teaching, myth, and practice of Tantra exists, operates, and therefore teaches and transforms at multiple levels as forms of energy that are more or less dense. For example, Shiva, the sacred container of pure consciousness, expresses as Stanu, a column of pure white light. The Sushumna, the central and largest nadi of your energy body, and your spine. Using the form in which a teaching, myth, or practice expresses within a particular layer of consciousness will directly work with and on you at that same layer of consciousness, and on your progressively denser layers of consciousness. I share more about this and why it matters in Chapter 4 on karma and Chapter 5 on mantra. Its sacred nature and mechanism is hidden. The sacred nature of the universe and the sacred mechanism of its expression are hidden from your perception. In the process of becoming all the infinitely varied forms of energy matter in the universe, and of birthing and dissolving each of them, both the sacred force of creation, Shakti, and the great sacred container of consciousness, Shiva, are lost. They are absorbed into the forms they create and are imperceivable by us except as those forms. This act of veiling and the force of creation that draws the veil is called Maya, illusion, or deceit. Maya is commonly misunderstood to mean that our material existence, our lives, our bodies, our systems of cultural organization, is an illusion. It doesn't actually exist, and we're mistaken in believing that it does exist. Pure consciousness is the only reality, and the goal and aim of spiritual practice is to know that. We are being dreamed. This misunderstanding has birthed all kinds of spiritual bypassing of human suffering and its causes, especially of our own role in causing harm and injustice, and our capacity to help alleviate it. "We are one" is a lovely catchphrase, but it is not yet a lived reality. It has also propagated rejection, disregard, and denigration of the physical body in favor of aspiring to transcend it. Not to mention avoidance of the uncomfortable and confronting task of turning to the work of transforming our own triggers, biases, and prejudices. The illusion of Maya is not that your lived experience and the world with all its complexities does not exist or is somehow false. The illusion of Maya is that you are separate from the sacred, and that your material existence is the only aspect of reality that exists. Through the veil of Maya, you forget that you and everything around you is the sacred, because you cannot see the threads that weave you together with all that is. You do not recognize that there is a sacred order and dance at play, infinite, incessant, and outside the scope of your comprehension, and that you have access to it, that it runs right through you. The practice of Tantra. Tantra is an untangling and a weaving back together. Tantra means instrument or technology for weaving, sometimes interpreted as literally and simply as loom. From the Sanskrit root tan, meaning to weave, and the suffix tra, meaning vehicle, instrument, technology, method, or device. The practices of Tantra are designed to weave your experience of being separate from the sacred back into communion with the sacred and your own sacred wholeness, so that you know without waver that you are the sacred, and that you are inextricably woven into and held by its rhythm, that undulating wave of cosmic order with sacred value and sacred purpose. To do that, these practices will untangle, shake loose, and transform anything that is in the way of you recognizing and living this reality. They are powerfully adept and direct at cutting through the densest of minds and the deepest of illusions, transforming the stickiest, stubbornest, and most persistent of patterns, and easing the tenderest of wounds. They were designed for it, and they use your body as the instrument of your transformation and your liberation. Your body is your instrument of spiritual liberation. Your body is a microcosm of the universe. Energetically, it holds the entire universe. To say that it simply reflects the aspects of the universe is inaccurate. Your body has a corollary emotionally, intellectually, energetically, physically, psychologically, for every aspect of the universe. That which exists outside of you exists inside of you is not a metaphor. It is an energetic, material, and experienced reality. Simply put, your body is an expression of the sacred. It is a form of sacred speech at the densest end of the energy matter spectrum. And your body is your means of knowing the sacred. It is your instrument of both perception and self-actualization through the tantric practices of asana, physical posture, pranayama, breath control, mantra, and mudra. This cultivates a rooted, lived experience of belonging to yourself and the sacred and everything else with certainty and a great deal of awe. And it develops your capacity to be fully present and act in the world with all its complexity, heartbreak, and injustice. Tantra is experiential and universal. Ancient yogic sages, rishi, perceived the fundamental nature of the universe, that it is vibrating energy arising from a universal field of potentiality during states of deep meditative listening. Their instrument of perception was their body, and their application of the scientific method was through their own experience and experimentation. It is from here, through this, that the practices of Tantra evolved. The practices of Tantra are what they do.
This is one of the things I love most about the Tantric yogic traditions, and likely the reason I've stuck with them. They are experiential, and they are both personal and universal. You do not need to believe anything. You just need to practice and see what happens. Likewise, although they originate from a particular spiritual tradition, the principles and practices of Tantra are universal. They transcend the specifics of any religious or spiritual tradition to point to a universal truth, and they are available to all. This makes Tantra inherently pluralistic. There is no conflict in practicing it while also practicing within another tradition. You can freely use them to enhance each other for your own practice and transformation. Your relationship with the sacred is yours. The sacred will come to you. It will reveal itself to you through these practices as you are, in the form that most resonates with you. It does not care what form that is. The sacred does not care what form it is in, which form you love, how you worship and practice. It will come to you as you are, how you will relate to it, what you love, for what you need. My client Karen, during our practice of a Durga mantra, was told, "This is not your lineage." Then, who she understood to be Durga, guided her to what is her lineage. Durga is the great mother, the great warrior goddess, holding the sacred energy pattern of power, sovereignty, and protection. Karen cried tears of joy and recognition at finally finding, after having longed and searched and wondered and doubted herself, the thread of continuity, legitimacy, and belonging that ran through her to her work. My client April learned that her heart speaks Hebrew. She went on to learn it and added chanting in Hebrew to her devotional practices. My friend Nona, who graciously was the first person with whom I ever worked with in this way, finally met and learned the name of the teacher whom she'd only known as the, quote, Indian man in a blanket who's followed me around for 20 years. You will find your true teacher, your lineage of sacred practice, your path of devotion through the practices of Tantra. You will not be asked to take on anyone else's. This is the power of these practices. They are a portal to the eternal. Tantra is disruptive. Tantra is disruptive. It is disruptive to Western practitioners and to Western institutions, systems, and norms because it is rooted in a different ontology than Western culture, which is dominated by mind, reason, Christianity, and duality. I talk more about the split embedded in the history of our socioeconomic system here in the West and our resultant longing for wholeness as our collective karma in Chapter 4. But Tantra is also disruptive by nature. Its practices are designed to disrupt your patterns and open spaces of unknown possibility in a way that feels like a gap in space-time. Your mind will not understand, but you will be in both gratitude and awe. This is what makes it so effective at untangling the root of what distracts and derails you. My training and experience. I fell in love with chanting mantra and with the tradition of Tantra in 2006, after I'd been practicing yoga asana and meditation for 6 years. I would practice in my car, parked alongside a park around the corner from my apartment in Atlanta, so that no one in my building would hear me. The first mantra I practiced was a Ganesha mantra, who is widely known and loved as the remover of obstacles, the deity at the threshold of new beginnings. It was apt. I had no idea how profoundly the practice of mantra would change my life, but I could feel it resonate inside of me with such relief and recognition and delight that it brought tears. It was a revelation to me that my voice could do this. I have always had a big voice, a loud voice, a resonant voice. I am that woman in the cafe who you wish would understand that everyone does not want to hear her story. I get enthusiastic and I get loud. I physically cannot whisper. It literally hurts. I have been shushed, nudged under the table, and asked to keep it down for as long and as often as I can remember. I temper my voice constantly. There were, and still are, few places where I can use the full power of my voice. In mantra, I found one. And I've found out in retrospect that I am very tantrically trained. My relationship with mantra and its source spiritual tradition, Tantra, like every intimate dance with the sacred, has been a love affair. I tried to look at my training through my Western eyes for a long time, wondering where I could seek certification in the teaching of mantra, whether I would, could, or should become a Swami or a PhD, whether I knew enough of the technicalities of tantric practice and its language, cosmology, and tradition, wondering how I would ever extract myself from the inherent knot of learning and practicing it in the United States without the means to travel to India. That, however, is not the way Tantra works, or how, in my understanding, it is traditionally taught. It is an oral, experiential, and revelatory tradition of spiritual practice. It is mysticism, and so is its method of training. I was not taught about Tantra. I was taught through Tantra. Led for more than 20 years by curiosity, devotion, and awe, and if I'm completely honest, at times arrogance. And a living guru and teachers as it applied to my own life, one piece at a time, which is why I know how to midwife you through the untangling of what distracts and derails you, piece by piece. Since 2006, I have been a student in a lineage of the Indian saint Neem Karoli Baba, through my guru Ma Jaya Sati Bhagavati and my teachers Swami Jayadevi and Swami Shakti Durgaya. Baba's lineage is one of devotion, bhakti, service, seva, and sound, nada. And the lineage of many Western practitioners, including Ram Das and kirtan artists Bhagavan Das, Krishna Das, and Jayutal. I was certified in classical yoga through Swami Jayadevi at Kashi, Atlanta in 2008. I studied Sanskrit pronunciation with native practitioner of Kashmir Shaivism and founder of Living Sanskrit, Shivani Hawkins. And I am a lineage holder of Kalinatha Yoga as handed down by Ma Jaya through Swami Jayadevi and Swami Shakti Durgaya. I have received multiple initiations into this work, explicitly from my living teachers and mystically from ascended masters. And I continue to be taught mystically by Ma, Baba, and Swami Bhagavan Nityananda of the Siddha Yoga lineage. But overwhelmingly, I was taught by example, by experience, and at the subtle levels of speech. I received exactly what my soul needed, in exactly the way it needed it, in order to untangle the root of my pain, to deeply trust myself, and to cultivate lived, embodied wisdom, the stuff of Tantra, rather than intellectual understanding, which, as an Ivy Leaguer and a lawyer, I sought in abundance. My guru Ma was very personal and very practical in the way she worked with us. I often did not understand what I was being taught when I received it, and I did not understand her words when she spoke them. She used to tell us to put an index card on our altar that said, "This is what Ma meant." I would ask Ma a question to ease my own pain or satisfy my own curiosity, and a decade or more later, I would realize that I'd been being trained in the answer to that question. With few exceptions, Ma never told me what she was teaching me, or confirmed what she would or wouldn't teach me, unlike what I heard her do with others. I can only count 3 times that she taught me by speaking to me aloud, and every time it was specific to my life. Every other time, she taught me through the subtle levels of speech, including through pure vibration, an explosion from which 2 words emerged as a direct answer to a question I'd been asking. I have to laugh. It's perfect, essential even, for a practitioner of mantra. I was taught through my teachers the practice of Kalinatha Yoga and my practice of mantra to listen with my inner ear. I was taught how to use my practices practically to metabolize my thoughts, my emotions, and my karma. But it is through my own practice that I have cultivated an intimate relationship with these sacred energies and practices. They live and breathe within me. Most of what I share with you here is wisdom and insight cultivated over time through the practice and application of mantra, infused with devotion, wonder, curiosity, and awe. The practice of mantra has taught me nearly everything I know about its nature, its practice, and the sacred patterns of healing and transformation it holds. I tell you this not simply so that you know whose hands you are in, but to highlight, with awe that never gets old, the power of your lived wisdom, cultivated by your devotion, to guide you, and that you can trust it. It is the sacred speaking to you and through you. Listen.